I'm Brian Lilly. The truth on global warming, that is the topic of tonight's byline. So NASA declared that 2014 was the hottest year on record. They made a big splash of it last Friday. They held a news conference. They put out graphics, videos, and the like. They did everything they could to let the world's media know that 2014, the year of the polar vortex, was the hottest on record. And then they hoped that everyone would just walk away, not ask questions. Except they didn't just walk away. What NASA didn't highlight, didn't make readily available, was the fact that they were only 38% sure that 2014 was the hottest year on record, which means that they were 62% unsure of this claim. Was this in the headlines? No. Was this in the press release? No, not at all. Was it mentioned in any of their media statements? No. It was in the fine print of their notes. You had to go looking for it. Now, of course, NASA knew that most of the public and most of the media wouldn't go looking for it, so they could make their statements with as much surety as they could muster. It shouldn't be a shock that NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies would be, well, not overly forthcoming with this information. It might damage their message, but it also follows a pattern. The Goddard Institute is headed up by a man named Gavin Schmidt, and when the ClimateGate emails were released, you remember those ones, the ones showing researchers and scientists scheming to hide the decline? Well, Schmidt's name shows up in the ClimateGate emails as well. See, one of the bones of contention that those skeptical of the global warming theory had about 8 to 10 years ago was that researchers would make claims. They would release their model saying the world was warming up and this is how it's happening, but they wouldn't release their data sets, the key figures that allowed them to arrive at these conclusions, so others couldn't question it. Well, in an email to Michael Mann of the hockey stick graph fame, Schmidt suggests releasing the data that skeptics are looking for through freedom of information requests, but making sure that no one else can understand what is released. He wrote in his email, frankly, I would simply put the whole CRU database in an as penetrable as possible form up on the website, along with a brief history of its provenance and the role of the NMSs, and be done with it. Release it, he says. Just make sure that no one else can understand it. That ensures that no one can question. So that's what Schmidt has done here. He put out a press release saying 2014 was the hottest year on record. Then he hid the fact that they actually weren't all that sure of this. Now, regardless of whether they are sure or not, we're told that this is all proof of global warming and that, as such, we need to drastically change our lifestyle. Doesn't seem to matter that there hasn't been any global warming since 1998. The alarmists always have to try to have their way. Now, remember, this is not just me. It's not just crazy old me or some crazy website saying there's been no warming since 1998. It's also the United Nations climate change body itself, the IPCC. In the report from last year, it said, despite the robust multi-decadal warming, there exists substantial interannual to decadal variability in the rate of warming, with severe periods exhibiting weaker trends, including the warming hiatus since 1998. That's the only clear language part of it, by the way. Warming hiatus since 1998. So let's review what we do know for sure. 2014 was not the hottest year on record. The scientists at NASA would like to tell you that, but well, all they can claim is it was the hottest year since 1880 when modern record keeping began, but even that they're not too sure of. Remember, just 38% sure. We also know that global warming stopped in 1998. The UN itself says so. Even if they won't shout that from the rooftops, their own reports admit that. So if both of these are true, then why are we still pushing for climate change deals that will drastically alter our lifestyle, stymie the economies of Western nations? Well, it's part ideology and part money. When I heard the statistic, 38% sure, I asked online if people would believe their doctor if the doc said, you know, I'm 38% sure that you have cancer. Well, guess what? Online, time and again, progressives said to me, yes, I would believe that. I guess it makes sense since progressive policies don't work and they keep trying them again and again. But then there's the money side of things. There's a lot of money at stake in the global warming racket, from the research grants to multi-billion-dollar green funds administered by the United Nations. If the public stops buying what these guys are selling, and then the politicians stop buying it, well, all these funds, all that money, that will dry up. Remember, back in 2010, Ottmar Edenhofer, he's a German economist and then co-chair of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Mitigation Working Group. Well, he was clear because in an interview just ahead of the Climate Change Summit, he said climate policy is redistributing the world's wealth. People like Schmidt at NASA and those that back him would love you to think this is all about pure science, but it never has been. If it was, NASA would never have let that news release go out, claiming definitively that 2014 was the hottest on record. And that's the byline.